What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of We Run This. I am Chris Illuminati. He's Nick Domingo. What's up, Nick?
Not much, dude. How was your holiday?
It was good. It was good. I'm now, it's funny, like maybe usually like 5 or 6 o'clock Christmas Day, you're kind of like me. I'm kind of like, all right, holidays are over. It's done.
Yeah.
Nothing's, even though there's New Year's left, it's still kind of like, nah, everything's done. It's all over. And I've kind of like, I'm thinking about the next year already.
I feel you. My grandma actually, she's 98 now. Pretty much every single year, she used to make her sisters argue with her to make her cry because she did not want Christmas to end. So that was her way of justifying that she would cry, because she cries when Christmas is over. So when she was a young kid, would be like, I'm gonna get in arguments with my sisters to make me cry, but really it was because Christmas is over. And maybe that's kind of how you're feeling now, man.
Wouldn't it just be better if you just cried that Christmas was over? Like, why you gotta start fights?
I think that she just didn't want to be ashamed of crying, because it was Christmas. But, hey, it's worked for 98 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, I'm not arguing with a 98-year-old over anything. Like, if she tells me that works to live to be 98, I'll do it.
Exactly.
Does she make any New Year's resolutions?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. I'll have to ask her. I know this year her big one is like, I'm going to go to Nick and Christy's wedding. So maybe her resolution is just making it to that shit, which, knock on wood, she does, man. Other than that, I don't know. I'll have to ask her.
It tends to, I feel like people, like, have you ever heard people where they're really sick? I'm not saying your grandmother's sick, but people get really sick and they like hang on for the holidays, or they hang on for something important, and then that thing goes, and it's like, and not saying I want that for your grandma, but if like she's willing herself to live for your wedding, she probably will.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that. I hope so, man. I mean, shit, I hope that she's there. So yeah, other than that, I'm like you, I'm kind of checked out and just thinking like, let's get through the next couple days and bring in a new year. Not that really magically anything happens from, hey, it's December 31st to January 1st, but at least it's a new beginning, I guess.
Do you make resolutions?
I don't. I make a goal board. I like make a vision board of things that I like want to accomplish throughout the year, rather than like, everyone, hey, I'm going to go start to run in January. And then by February 3rd, you're like, I've run 6 times. Like, what the fuck? Now I'm just going to go drink. So I don't know. I kind of stay away from it to focus more on the bigger goals and say like, here's where you want to be throughout the year. But that's just me. What about you? Anything?
I'm going to set a running goal this year. The past 2 years I set running goals, but they're a little bit different. So they're going to sound the same, but they're different. So 2 years ago, I wanted to run 1,000 miles, and I did. This year, I wanted to run 1,100 miles. I didn't make it. I'm at like 800 and something or other. This coming year, I want to run less, but farther, if that makes sense. So I want my runs to be longer. And I think it's probably because all of the ultra runners that we've had on this past year have infiltrated my brain. And I feel like I want to go for like longer distances, shorter amount of times, less amount of times running.
I like that. When I was doing that virtual race in May earlier this year, I was kind of on that track too, where I was so used to doing 4 or 5 days a week at like 5 or 6 miles, and I was doing 8, 9 on weekdays, and then on Saturday or Sunday doing like a really long run. I actually really liked it because it gives your body enough time to recover, and you don't feel as bad if, like, say you ran on Tuesday 10 miles and Wednesday, Thursday you just get totally sidetracked with stuff and you don't have time to run. You can make up for that distance on Friday and be like, I'm going to go for another 10, and your body is like totally all about it. So I like that. I'm going to push you to see if you can reach that goal.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to attach a mile number to it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, though, sometimes when you make those goals and there's not like a concrete, like running more but farther is not really a concrete goal.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just a thing. So maybe I do have to kind of put a number on it. Maybe I'll drop back down to 1,000 and see how that works.
No, man. Stick to it. I like it. I'd like go big. You've got a whole year, man. You'll accomplish it.
Yeah. So speaking of accomplishing goals, our guest today is Natalie Johnston. She's a running coach. I like to call her a running guru because I know her personally, besides us interviewing her on here, and she's very like Zen, meditate, kind of like laid back. So we had a pretty good conversation with her.
Yeah, she seems really in tune with like the mental aspect
Mhm.
of not only running but just how to live your life. And as she said yesterday on the podcast, like having the gray area, having that gray area of you don't always have to push yourself and you don't always have to be lazy. Like how do you mix it and find that middle ground? And I think for me, hearing her speak and kind of describe her journey through running and life, it was really interesting. It woke me up to be like, okay, don't be so hard on yourself on certain things, or push yourself or dig yourself into the ground, especially on a run if you're not totally feeling that. So she was super interesting.
Yeah, and some of the things she did say when she got into the personal stuff, like I was kind of like, my eyes popped out a little bit because it's some really personal things that she said and statements that she made that I was like, wow, I don't know if I would admit that on a podcast full of people.
Yeah, she was extremely candid. So I'm excited for everybody to kind of hear her story, take her tips. As you mentioned, you guys have met and have known each other for a few years and actually met through running, right?
Yeah, she was my running coach for a couple articles that I did.
So yeah, let's dive into it, man. I think people will really like to hear what Natalie has to say.
Absolutely. Let's talk to Natalie. Hey everybody, we are back and we are here with Natalie Johnston. Natalie, how are you?
I'm awesome. How are you guys?
Doing good. You're kind of semi on vacation for the holidays. You're away.
Yeah, I am blessed with having a house in Martha's Vineyard, so we come up here whenever we can, and I figured since, COVID is on the rise, might as well just hang up here for 2 weeks in quarantine and, work up some online stuff and catch up on work.
I have a question about holidays. I've always wondered this because I know it never happens to me, but so your entire life is based around running, coaching, that kind of stuff. Do people try and get you like running themed gifts or like?
Yeah, I got compression socks this year.
Okay.
But I'm trying to think if I've ever gotten running besides that. I get money a lot. People just like to give me money. Okay. And then, which is kind of, nice. Because I also do the massage therapy. So I think it's kind of like extra tip for the year. But people are thoughtful. I mean, I'd usually bring like a coffee actual like cup to one of my clients, like houses. And she got me something that what are those things called? The oh my God, the
tumbler?
Yetis.
Oh, the Yeti? Okay.
Yeah, she got me a Yeti like tumbler just because I'm always bringing my mug. Mm-hmm. So people are thoughtful,
I just always wonder because sometimes people try to get like a little gadgety with it. They're like,
I don't think so. Not with me, at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nick, do you try and get gadgety with your running gifts?
I do. I try and look for all the like trendy stuff. The biggest runner in my family is my brother-in-law Wyatt. So I make sure that he's up to date with all the trends.
Oh, that's good. That's nice of you, Nick. What a nice guy.
I like to give. I'm a giver.
Are you? Okay. Nick, do you ever get any bad like kind of running gifts?
Yeah, dude, all the time. I mean, shit.
Really?
All the time.
What's
a bad running gift?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's just like the same thing over and over. Like literally for the past probably 10 to 12 years. God bless her, but my mom will be like, "Hey, I got you some new running shirts." I'm like, "Yeah, you got me 5 new running shirts last year, Mom." Like I'm set on running shirts. I don't need to recycle them every single year. So that to me is a bad running gift. That or shoes. And I want to get your take on this because shoes are such a Interesting
you're saying.
topic. Right? We've talked about it, and we know that shoes are such a personalized thing. If someone's giving me running shoes for Christmas, I basically am like, thank you, but let me go return them and get the ones I want, so that I know that they're comfortable and I know that they're not going to hurt my feet. Like, do you guys agree with that?
100%. I mean, it's a nice, thoughtful gift, obviously, to buy somebody a pair of running shoes, but it's so super specific to your own foot, that unless they say like, hey, what's your shoe size? Hey, what brand and model do you like? Give me freaking specifics. Then other than that, it's like, it's just hard to, know what's going to be appropriate for you, because sometimes you don't necessarily know what's going to be appropriate to you, especially if they like, change the models each year, So if you, let's say like the Ghost 12 and they just came out with the Ghost 13, it's not necessary that that one's going to still work for you. You still have to kind of retry on all the models, which sucks.
Exactly. And, my mom, when I say like new running shoes, I am looking at like $130 pair of shoes, which people who don't run often are like, why would you need a $130 pair of shoes to run in rain and run like that? You're just going to get dirty. So she gets like the $45 ones that are like on sale at Costco. And I'm like, Mom, bro, dude, my feet are going to kill me if I wear this shit for like 10 runs. So,
oh my God, that's really cute.
Yeah, I love her to death, but that to me is a bad running gift. So maybe I'm just a spoiled brat when it comes to my running gear.
I get it, but you might be a spoiled brat.
I'll admit it.
I'm just kidding.
I'll take that. But speaking of, I don't want to say speaking of spoiled brats, because you might not have been. But Natalie, so reading on your bio, and Nick and I both wanted to comment on this because I, for one, found it amazing. So on your bio, it says you've been running since 13, your age of 13, but it says you've been competitive since you were 3.
Yeah.
What are you competing in at 3?
Don't make me cry and laugh. I think that needs to have an edit a bit, but I actually competed in horse shows.
Okay.
So like I was on mature ponies. I have little, ribbons that I'm walking around like with the lanyard with my aunt, and I am competing in a horse show. So therefore, if I'm a politician, I was competing at 3. But in all, like, I started dancing at 5, like every other probably little girl does. And then I got really into ballet and pointe. And then my mom, like one of our neighbors, started swimming. So then at the age of 8, I got into swimming and then became pretty competitive in that for 8 years. And then I found running just haphazardly at 13 because everybody was going out for the track team. And I was just like, all right, I mean, I can run. Let's do it, And back when I was in 8th grade in New York, they did the 3,000 meter, which is about 1.8 miles. And I don't think they do that in the middle schools anymore, but no one was doing it. And I was just like, I'm gonna go for it, And I like love distance running. I was actually like really good at it out the gate. And that's when a friend of mine told me to join cross country in the 9th grade. And me being like blonde and like super uneducated with the running scene, I was like, what's cross country? Do you like run across the country? Because that seems weird. She's like, yeah, no. You just run long distance. And I was like, okay, sweet, awesome. And then that's when I started like actually like getting into, running as like more seriously.
Have you ever crossed over from your background in swimming into doing like a try at all?
So I have done like a couple of tries, like loosely. Like I think I jumped in a try back when I was like maybe like 24-ish, and then I jumped into one last year. I did the Steelman try up in Lake Nakamixon, just for like shits and giggles. Like a bunch of people were doing it.
Deal. Not at all. It was try like just for the hell of it.
Yeah, it was like a sprint. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, I got the swim. I'll just get back in the pool. It's not going to be like it used to be, but at least I know what I'm doing. And then the run, it's a 5K. Like that's not going to be so difficult. it's the bike for me that I'm terrible at. Like I can actually bike, but to get like speed, oh God, I'm so slow. Like horrible. Like
That's so interesting because you hear so many different people talk about their experience with tries. And like, I can run and I can bike, but I can't swim. You can obviously run and swim, but you can't bike. So it's so funny how with each
mhm,
person, there's always an excuse not to do a triathlon because it's
yeah.
one of the three elements that would make it miserable. So I kind of find it interesting that with your long distance running background and swimming that you're like, I have no idea how to actually gain speed on a bike.
Yeah, and like I tried so hard and I was like I think it was I'm gonna say like a 15-mile bike ride. And I think I got up to like 18 miles an hour. And I swear to God, that was the hardest thing ever. My hip flexors at the end of it, when I was doing the run, I'm like, "Ooh, do I have a breathing stitch? I don't know. Okay, this kind of hurts. Oh, I think I hurt my hip flexor." I'm like, "Do I have to poop? I don't know. This is cramping in my side." And then I soon realized I was just hammering with the bike and it was like really using my hip flexor to the point of, because I was like biking my little heart away. Because even though I'm not a triathlete, I'm a competitive, what type of athlete. I'm gonna, try to take over the first place finish, which I didn't get, but it's okay. I was close.
So we talked about how you did competitive things when you were younger.
Yeah.
Were you a competitive person? Like, were you the kid that was gunning
Oh
for
yeah.
number one? Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, like
Any
in
good stories
element.
about that?
Yeah, I mean, like elementary school, just to start, there was you did your physical fitness test, and I was just like, I am beating all the boys. There was this one boy, David, that would always beat me. And I was like, I am coming for you, man. Like, I am going to kick your ass. Let's go. Right. And he beat me in a couple of things, but there was the was it the arm hang? Back in the day, they would like let you put your chin on the bar. I held that thing for 2 minutes and 30 seconds as like probably a sixth grader. And I'm like, I'm not letting go. I'm not letting go. So I've always had some sort of internal drive um, that I don't know where it came from, but probably a little bit of like a positive energy and like a negative kind of energy, being like I always struggled with not feeling like I was ever good enough. So I think that little bit of excess of being like I have to be the best probably started with a little negativity, like to make myself feel better about me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you actually segued into another question I had about that because
Yeah.
being competitive can be amazing, but it can also be a huge detriment mentally
Hmm.
and physically. And you kind of touched on the mental side that
Yeah.
you use that as motivation to be like, I need to push myself to be better. But have you ever gotten yourself in trouble physically where you may have reached a point in a race, whether it was in college or one of these triathlons or marathons that you've done where you pushed yourself and actually got yourself injured because you're so competitive?
Oh my God. Yeah. I've had 9 stress fractures. So yeah, I was a little bit of a hot mess in my 20s mostly. I went, to a D1 college to start. I went to Manhattan College, and the first like season, I got myself a pair of, stress fractures, one in my femur and one in my tibia. And it was a little combination between different programming, right, from high school to college. I was a completely like, that type A personality trying to be the best I possibly can. And I'm running with these like girls that I had no business running with, So it was a little bit of a combination between not the right coaching for me, probably, but also me pushing the limits, because it's like if I'm not number one, then who am I? I'm not good enough, and it was that internal battle that just constantly led me in this circle of injuries, because it was just perpetual.
If you're not first, you're last, right?
Yeah,
Ricky
yeah,
Bobby.
Yeah, so I didn't have like mentors or people that I have nowadays where I've really, it only took until like me probably getting into the coaching scene, which I started coaching back in 2012, to really learn more about how to nurture your body physically and emotionally with respect to, your training, So yeah, I pushed the limit a lot.
You, Speaking of pushing the limit, you wrote on your bio that running has saved your life in many different ways. Is that what you were talking about in your 20s? It saved you in that?
Yeah, I would say even in high school. So like, I, I'm trying to think how I want to put this. I think if I did not do sports, most likely I'd probably be dead. And I probably could say that with a pretty definitive, yeah, because, so I have a family like history of alcohol and like drug addiction. And then I ended up getting into that whole scene in high school. So I was pretty bad in alcohol, like, drinking and using drugs for probably from 16 to like 28. So every time I would get injured, right, I would go through this process of, well, I'm not running. Like, it's the only thing that helps me cope in life. So I'm just going to drink my face off and do drugs and not actually take care of my body. Right. And then those times of like, it was only during injuries, then started to trek during like my season. Right. And stuff. So, but it always came back to this point of I still want to be the best version of me, right? So if I didn't have that within my sport, I think I probably would have just stayed on that perpetual, like, you know, addict type of mentality and, you know, killed myself in that way, right? So yeah, I think that if I didn't have running in my life or some sort of, competitive aspect, that I would have went down the rabbit hole big time. And luckily in 2012, right before I started this business, I got sober. So yeah, things have changed in the last 8 years for sure.
Well, kudos to you. That's
Thank you.
super difficult, and I'm sure all three of us, you personally going through it, we've all known people who've had to deal with that. And one of the things I always find mega interesting, because there's some correlation, and I don't know what it is, obviously, but a lot of people who have been addicted to anything, whether it's drugs, alcohol, work, anything in their life, they always try or seem to try to put that same effort of I love doing this
Yeah.
into physical activity. And that seems to always be like what they focus on. They find another thing to basically be addicted to or obsessed with. And so, kind of a two-part question, but did your drive and your competitiveness running early, and then kind of your passion for, addiction, translate into you getting out at the other end on the running scene? But also, can you talk about the community and how they supported you? Because running and fitness has such a cool, close knit community that
Yeah.
I want to know, where was that support system for you to help you come out on the other side to where you are now?
Well, I did AA for 2 years, so that was kind of like my, I think, community, and then I did a bunch of just regular therapy. And I would say that my community, running wise, is a teensy bit small. Like, I have a lot of, acquaintances and that kind of stuff, but I don't really have a huge running based community. And I think it's because, I work so much. So I'm seeing, I see about like anywhere between 5 to 8 people a day. And then when I go on my runs, it's like I either choose one person to run with, or I do it on my own for my own like mental, sanity. But during the process of, just like getting sober and that kind of stuff, it was mostly just like me working on me. I used AA as a means to, get sober. I couldn't personally stay with it just because I believe that there's more to life than just that program. But yeah, so I don't know if running community really did anything for that. I think it was more me on me, if that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Again,
Yeah.
not everyone finds that community.
Yeah.
So I just always find it interesting that so many people do focus or turn their attention on fitness and bettering their health, and obviously their physical health and their mental health, that all comes with it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to each his own. So the fact that you did have community and outside of AA and pushing yourself, you know, that if that worked, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that from a running perspective, like, how do I want to put it? Like there was this over addiction towards running, right, for like most of my life, and over exercising, that when I decided to, you know, change my life wholesale, I tried to create like more balance within my life as a whole. You know what I mean? So it just became like this, I'm not going to overdo anything anymore within my life, you know? And I think a lot of times with people in general who don't even have addiction, they don't know how to sit in the gray area. It's either all or nothing, and we don't know how to hang out in here. And I just built this space of being okay with being like a reformed perfectionist type A personality into like an AB, like, you know, like, and I can kind of chill in this space. So I don't know if that was like kind of like an offshoot, but yeah.
You mentioned on your bio too that you use running as a form of meditation, and you
Yeah.
say that you like to release your emotions. Now, my question is the meditation more you're running and you clear your mind and the emotions come out, or are you specifically focused on, this is what's bothering me, I'm going to work this out in my head until something comes of it?
I think it's kind of a mixture, you know, like sometimes I just like feel like shit running, excuse my French, but like I really just don't feel good, you know, and I'm literally in this run and I'm just like slugging it out, and I'm like stuck in that headspace of like, I'm tired, I'm stressed, and my run feels tired and stressed, you know, so I can be in like that space. And that actually doesn't feel meditative at all. And I would say currently that's how my runs have felt as of late. When I wrote my bio years ago, like I literally felt like I can go in a run and be in a space of like, okay, I'm sad, or I'm mad, but this is gonna help kind of get my, you know, my endorphins up and like kind of my dopamine up, and it's just gonna help me work through anything that I need to. Um, but you know, fast forward like I guess what, 8 years. Now it's working through different things like, okay, stress as a whole, like, you know, like running doesn't always feel good for me nowadays because my stress levels are always up. So I have to work through it in a different means. So like instead of like feeling like it's curing everything per se, I have to actually train my brain to be like, okay, we're going to use mantras today to get yourself through this run because, you know, maybe you didn't eat enough today, so you're slugging it out, right? So yeah, I would say years ago, like I have to update that bio, man, because
I liked it. I
like
mean, that was
no, because it's like weird because like 8 years ago I felt like, you know, I just go out and I run and it feels not effortless, but like I can kind of just use it as a means to release a lot of emotions. And I've done so much self-work that a lot of my emotions and my traumas and all that stuff I've worked through. So like the coping strategy that I use with running has kind of transcended into, okay, I just run. I do it because, you know, it's fitness based, it's performance based, and I'm not using it for that sole reason of coping and making me feel better anymore, even though it does inherently do it. But it's not the reason I'm doing it anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's just,
Well,
I guess I've changed.
We all
I think
change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'll show you the gray hairs on my head and the thinning hairs too. We have definitely changed.
for sure.
Along those lines, you know, you mentioned how your approach has changed to running, and I think early on, you know, you really pushed yourself to try and improve your times and get faster
Hmm.
with running. And you kind of touched on it, but now you're talking about trying to run until you're in triple digits. And so,
Yeah.
how did you develop that change in attitude? It kind of goes along with what you kind of talked about, but I'm interested to hear your long-term goal with running and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times it just has to do with patience, and not beating yourself up anymore. Because I did that a lot growing up. It's like, oh, if I didn't hit this time or if I didn't do this in this race, then, I'm not good enough. So I'm going to go back out and run like another, 3 to 5 miles because I'm going to beat myself up because I suck. And this is your punishment, which doesn't make any sense because if you didn't do well in your race, well, maybe it's because you didn't eat enough or you didn't sleep enough or you're overtraining. So I think it's just, building that patience, having, commitment, decreasing your stress levels. And then as we start to get older, our training is just going to change. In college, I ran 6 days a week. I currently run 4 days a week. If I could run 5 days a week, I would love it. However, my body does not. I tend to just do really well with 4 days a week of training. So it's finding that magic as you start to age and being okay with changing the way that you train and not always thinking like, oh, I can still train the way I was when I was like, 20 years old, right? Um, and accepting it. So, acceptance is huge within a lot of things within our life. So, you know, I guess that's probably that.
One thing I want to touch on, one thing I want to touch on there that you kind of
Yeah.
alluded to. So, we were talking about change, and you said that you used to run 5 or 6 days a week, but now you're down to 4. And I think a
Hmm.
lot of times people get so stuck in especially when people take a lapse in anything like running or weightlifting. Like, okay, when I first got in shape, I used to go to the gym 6 days a week and I would do 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps and that. And that's what I did when I was 20. So if that worked when I was 20, that's going to work when I'm 40. And that's not the case, especially because that's just not the way your life works anymore.
Yeah.
So if you were at one time a morning runner, you're not always a morning runner because your life isn't like that anymore. So sometimes when you're coaching people, do you find that you have to actually coach them not just through running, but through life? Like to take a step back and go, well, maybe you're not that person anymore. So you should stop trying to think you are and do. Did you ever have those?
Oh, all the time.
What does that
Yeah.
talk sound like?
Oh, it's me being patient with them going through the process too, and just like having the capacity to just be there and listen and just say like, hey, like, I know that that's where you want to be and that's where you used to be, but we have to, redefine yourself as an athlete, right? So you're not the same person that you were back then. Your life circumstances, they're all different, right? So just it's reconstructing who you are as an athlete and accepting that and then taking it day by day, because who knows, maybe you will run some of the times that you used to run, right? We don't know that, but if you're stuck in the past, like you're just going to be frustrated that you're not there like fast enough, right? So just focus on where you're at today. And it's, I use a lot like redefine who you are, as an athlete, because you gotta, keep the memories, like, I mean, and then just to work on where you're at today.
You mentioned a really important word, not this past answer, but your
Yeah.
last one, that I think is so important for so many runners to hear, whether you're running every day or trying to get into it. That's the word punishment, because you guys have talked a little bit about it with your past, and where I was as a runner 6 months ago isn't where I'm a runner as a runner now. Like my times, my motivation, it's totally different, and that comes with changing of seasons, changing with body, whatever. How do you get across both yourself and anyone you're coaching to get over that punishment and accept that, look, running is supposed to be freeing, and you know, it's not supposed to be something that you hate doing at the end of the day because you need to, but it's something rewarding to yourself. How do you coach that to someone? Say, get that out of your mind completely.
You mean like kind of like no pain, no gain attitude?
Well, a little bit. I think so many people, we're all competitive or we wouldn't be running. And so, you know, I compare where I was over the past 6 months where I am now.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's, and you kind of hit on all the different like angles, right? So, we've been in a shit show, right, for 2020. There's been like no races. Yeah. Oh my God, it's been such a good year.
This is news to me. We're breaking news. We're breaking news on this podcast. 2020 has been a shit show, allegedly, and we don't know because we never left our house.
Exactly. Well, so like, and that's the whole thing, right? So it's just getting into that space of being kinder to yourself. Like a lot of times with my clients, like, you know, I have to like reiterate to them, like, listen, like, running is a process, and you're going to have, you know, plateaus, you're going to have peaks, and you're going to have valleys, right? And then you just have to see what's going on wholesale within your life that's creating either the plateau, the peak, or the valley. Obviously, we always want to be on a peak, but that's never going to keep on happening, because then we're all going to be running like 0-minute miles, and we're just be the Flash, right? Life's not like that. That'd be pretty cool though. But, you know, so it's just like, it's a kindness. Like, why punish yourself? Because at the end of the day, we're only on this planet for a limited amount of time. We don't know how long it is. And why don't you enjoy your life, right? So enjoy running, enjoy your life, make it fun. And if it's not fun and you're having some emotional or physical turmoils, it's nice having a coach, because then you can have that person to talk to and also see things more objectively too, you know? But yeah, I'm not into the whole punishing realm anymore, which I was. I just think that treating yourself with kindness and, you know, giving yourself a break type of deal, you know, like just, life is not that serious.
Speaking of coaching, so Natalie and I met, I don't know if I even just explained this to you, Nick.
Yeah.
Natalie and I met because I was working on an article. It's been like 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
I was working on an article, and Natalie, I trained with her for a couple sessions. And I remember the first session, you basically just, I mean, we covered a lot of stuff, but you made me run around the track and you watched me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of pinpointed some of the things that I was doing wrong. I'm sure you do that with everybody. What are the most common things that people do wrong?
From a form perspective?
From a form perspective.
A lot of times people, their cadence is slow. So cadence is essentially how many steps you take per minute. So I see a lot of cadence being below like 170. Typically I want people between 170 and like 185. If you ran like, if you read like Runner's World or something, 180 is going to be like your magic number, but it's not necessarily like the number. And cadence is also variable based on speed. So the faster you go, the quicker your cadence is going to be, right? So, so cadence is number one. Number two is overstriding. A lot of times people are just like reaching out in front of them. And they're just landing like ahead of their center of mass. Okay, so that's a big one. People, posture wise, a lot of times people hinge at the hip as opposed to keeping an erect posture. Those are probably, oh, and crossover arms are big too.
Crossover.
Pretty cute like this.
So they're like,
but not with running.
Real quick. So, you said overstriding. Sometimes I feel like I understride. Is that possible?
I mean, it's possible, but maybe unlikely.
Okay. I feel like I take too many steps. Like I feel like
I take little choppy steps like I'm running soccer still.
Yes, I do. Like,
But
and I feel like, yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It just depends, like, because obviously we all want to look like, if you have like a visual of like Kipchoge in your mind, right? His stride just looks perfect and like long and beautiful. But he's running at 4:30-minute miles. So like it really depends where you're at within your pace parameters. So like for instance, if someone's running an 11-minute mile pace, and they're going to look like they're basically, just taking these tiny steps, but they can actually still be overstriding too, but they're going to have no stride length. So you're not going to see that beautiful leg behind, like kind of just like coasting behind you. You know how like you see in pictures where people look like they're flying? It's because they essentially are, like you're in flight phase and there's no feet on the ground. But me personally, I'd rather you take shorter strides and shorter steps, because the crap that you got to deal with when you're overstriding is just worse.
Well, and along those lines, seeing somebody and seeing the 3 different elements that you mentioned that maybe someone's form looks like. Can you talk about really quickly about some of the negatives that can come from that, whether it's injuries or otherwise?
Oh yeah, I mean, like if you're overstriding and you're hitting the ground pretty hard in front of you, you could deal with things at the level of the knee, like patellar tendonitis. You could have a hamstring, tibial, like shin splint type of stuff. And then I'm trying to think what else I see.
What about all those people on the treadmill who are running while still looking at their phone and they're not erect, standing up straight? Like what can go wrong with that? Not that I am that person.
Are you that person? Because I'd have
I'm
to like
not.
maybe take
I'm so focused. My dad's trying to talk to me on the treadmill, and I'm like, dude, get away from me, man.
I don't know. I think I would have to see a video of that, to be honest, to see how negative their form looks. I've never seen somebody on a treadmill running with their, their head down, looking at their form, like looking at their phone rather. So I couldn't probably answer that because I don't know how bad their form actually does look.
Here's something that you just brought up that I always find interesting, especially when I drive past certain people running on the street. How many people do you think would stop running if they saw a video of themselves running?
I would hope no one.
I don't know. I've seen some people where I'm like, if they saw what they were doing and how desperate they look, how miserable they look, how not even like ridiculous. Like I've never seen ridiculous, but I've seen some people where it looks like it's the last thing they want to be doing. And they just kind of like, So do you think that would be a good coaching mechanism to show people, this is like, think about in your head what you think you look like. This is what you actually look like.
Well, I've had some people where I've taken videos, right? And, I show it to them. I'm like, okay, so this is what I'm seeing. I want you to see this, right? But I want to like say one thing, that even though like form matters, it's not like everything. So there are some people who have like what we would quote, if I was to like take a Kipchoge and like put someone else like next to him, right? So he, in my eyes, looks like he has a perfect form. Not everybody has to fit that box, right? So I've had some runners who have horrible form if I'm aligning it with, him, right? But yet they're like beasts of athletes, so not everybody has to look perfect, I guess you could say. And we're all going to have our own different, type of form. It's just there are certain things that I like to like fine tune within form, if that kind of makes sense. Because I don't want everybody to think like, oh, like, you need this like perfect form in order to like, be injury free and, excel as being a runner. Not really. It's like one piece to the puzzle type of deal. And I mean, with your question, I honestly hope that even if they don't look perfect, you can kindly say,
I'm not saying
hey.
they have to look perfect. I'm just saying like some people just look like, it looks like The last thing on their mind that day was going for a run, and they just look like,
Yeah.
and they're just moving
Yeah,
all over and like
they're
kicking.
flailing. There have literally been people where like I see them flailing, and I'm like, one time actually I was on the trail
Mhm.
and there was a woman running, and like, you know, you don't want to like overstep your boundaries type of deal, and like she was running and I was just like casually like doing my thing, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna like say like, hey, do you want some free running advice type of deal? And she was super receptive to it because her cadence was so slow.
Mhm.
Like a fast cadence, right, would be like doot 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 doot. Hers was like this, and you're just like hanging in the ground longer, and you don't want to, right? So she was like really nice, and I was like, here, let's do a drill really quick, and she's like, okay, well, thank you for that. And like it was so super cool to just be able to do that really quickly, help somebody out, and you know, she looked better. Hopefully down the line she kept up with it and it actually worked, and I didn't, you know, F her up.
You mentioned something earlier too about fun and making running fun. How do you make running fun if someone, whether you're coaching them or you hear someone be like, running sucks?
Oh, that's a big one. I mean, because, you know, usually people who are the running sucks people like really loathe running. Like they're just like, nah, I'm good, man. You just kind of get to know their personality and see what they enjoy. So without, you know, like let's say like the person like speed more, right? And they're just more the distance stuff kind of stinks, right? But they want to learn how to like run for longer. You break it up into like run walk fashion, right? And then so that they're doing a little bit less running, and then you build it up over time so that they can build up that like kind of aerobic capacity to be like, oh, like I feel like this doesn't feel like shit anymore, yeah. But you could add fun things into it, like let's say, I don't know, arbitrarily, like you'll run for like 5 minutes, but like take a 30-second quicker pickup and then take like a walk break, right? And just get to know, you know, what their body likes and what they like mentally too. So I think it's a two-part capacity, because you don't want to necessarily do something that's going to hurt them, but if they think running sucks, you kind of have to figure out what they like and then go based on that.
Well, one thing I do remember from our coaching session was we talked about warm-ups, and you said one of the best things to do is just walk fast.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how important just walking fast is?
Well, it's just getting the body prepped for running, right? In the winter, I would say my fitness walks are a little bit shorter in duration just because it is so cold. So I'll usually walk like 3 minutes and then start my run off really, really slow. But you're just getting the body prepped for running. So you're just getting that blood flow and warming things up. And I'll add in some dynamic stretches too, just to kind of like throughout that fitness walk. And even in the winter, if like, let's say I go out and I'm starting that like beginning super, super easy part, I'll stop in the middle of like the first mile or whatever and just do some stretches if I feel like it. I no longer am that type of runner where it's like walking is a negative thing. It's a defeatist thing. I actually welcome like walking, just because it's got so many different components that are good for runners, but it's definitely poo-pooed in the running community for sure.
The walking first is poo-pooed?
Oh, yeah, like walking in general. It's so hard to get people to wrap their head around walking.
Why?
Yeah. I think because throughout, I mean, even at the high school level, like if you walk, like it's almost like you feel defeated, right? Like I'm not a walker, I'm a runner. And I'm like, you don't get it. It's just a little tiny piece to the puzzle with either helping you just get ready for a run, or let's say we put it in a run as a like a break from like, let's say an interval or like a walk run type of fashion. It reduces your heart rate, right? So you can get back to a baseline quicker. And you're ready more psychologically and physically because you've brought yourself back down. But yeah, I love walking. I'll do fitness walks as recovery days too.
See, I find walking is a reward. There are a lot of times in a 5 or 6
Yeah.
mile run that I know the route and I
Yeah.
know that I'm going to be hitting a hill really, really difficult, next half mile or mile stretch. And as soon as I push myself to that, there's times where I want to stop 2 or 3 times during that hike up. As soon as I get to the top, I'm like, dude, fuck it. You deserve this. Like walk
Yeah.
for 30 seconds, walk for a minute, catch your breath, get to a stoplight, then go. And I'm like you, I was at a point in my running career when I thought, great, all these people are passing me on the road looking like, look at this lazy ass who's walking and not running. And at some point I said, fuck it. I mean, I'm going out to reward myself. I don't want to just pass out after, doing this. So give myself a break. So I like that you're okay with walking every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I ran a pretty good 12 miler on Saturday, and my legs just opened up after a downhill, and I was like, I think I was at like 720 something pace, and I just kept it going for like the next like 4 miles, but I hadn't like really done that in a while. So yesterday, my legs were totally fatigued, and I'm like, all right, well, I want to get out for a shakeout. I'm just breaking up my run into 8-minute bouts, and I'm running really easy. I ran at like 9-minute miles, and I put 1-minute walk breaks after each 8-minute. Did I really probably need that? No, but at the same token, my legs don't hurt today, So there's like also like this it's called like graded exposure, right? So like if I would have kept on going for that 40 minutes, I would have been like plyometric, right? Jumping the whole entire time. But then I took a break 4 times to just decrease that so that my body's like, oh, let's take a break from jumping, right? So there's also like this kind of like coachy training sense thing why I add those in too. So it's good for, that psychological piece you were talking about, but it's also super good from a exposure to running, which is jumping, and healing. So good times.
Along the lines of healing and training and overtraining, and one thing I wanted to kind of like touch on before we wrapped it all up. So, I mean, we're coming to 2020 is coming to a close. We were just alerted that there was a bad 2020. You told us, we had no idea that there was a bad 2020. But on a bunch of our other shows, we talked about how everyone we talked to, how they're excited that 2021, hopefully everything opens up again and races start again, which we're all grateful for. But I feel like that's going to be a prime time when people are like, okay, 2021's opening up. I'm doing the 5K here, then I'm going to do this marathon, then I'm going to do this bike race, and then there's this weekend. Like, what's some advice you give to people like, whoa, slow down.
Yeah.
2021 is a long year. Let's kind of pace this out.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I literally had to talk to like a lot of my clients with the virtual races because of that. Like in the very beginning, like when everything went virtual, I'm like, dude, we don't have to do a virtual race every week. Like we can chill, right? So, if you don't have a coach, right, and you're just kind of training yourself, pick out, depends on what you want to train for, right? So and it also depends what's open. So I'd focus on just like a couple of races. Let's say like you want to do a marathon, kind of pick some that are currently open. I don't know if I'd hold off on signing up for them. I would see what their, race policy is with regards to refunds and that stuff. But you kind of hit it on the nail. Like you just have to slow your roll. Like even if all these races start opening up again, think about the bigger picture. Like we don't want to go, we just had all this time to kind of maintain and train. Why lose it by getting injured? You know what I mean? And just going like ham and like, I'm going to do a 5K this weekend. Then I'm going to do a half marathon. I'm going to do a marathon. I don't care. I'm just racing all day, every day because I need people. Feed me, and it's like, just make a plan.
All right. So I'm 40 years old. I had to run since high school when my gym teacher forced me to do the mile. And I hated it. But out of 2020, I am interested in trying to get into running in the year 2021. What advice are you giving that person over 40 who hasn't run in, say, 2 decades?
Definitely walk, run. I mean, it's that whole concept of graded exposure, like you don't want to go out and be like, okay, I can just run 3 miles, and you'll probably be like, if you're capable of that, you'll probably trigger some shin splints and, potential like some sort of tendinopathy, like tendon, issue. So slowly load yourself up. There are a ton of different, plans out there. I think like Hal Higdon, is he the one? No, who's Jeff Galloway's big walk run. Hal Higdon, I think, is just for like beginners and stuff, but less is more, and non-consecutive days running, usually I tell people. And believe it or not, if you did like, let's say a run on a Monday, you could fitness walk the next day. And that's a good way of exposing your tissues to weight bearing activity. So that's like a good thing that people don't realize, that walking also helps to expose your muscles, ligaments, bones, and all that stuff to some weight bearing. And yeah, I would get connected with a coach, because that's the easiest way to friggin' do this shit.
Well, on that note, you should probably plug where people can find you, since you are a coach.
Well, that is true. So I'm personally maxed out on clients. However, I got some awesome coaches on my team too. Okay. But my website is runfitcoaching.com. My Instagram is runf.i.t. And I think that's really all I use is Instagram. Okay. I have a YouTube, but I don't know what that is.
And where can people send you awesome Christmas gifts?
Oh my God. Well, I don't know. Should I give my address?
No. Well, okay. Better yet, when Nick gets his shitty pair of shoes, where can he send them to you so that you can get rid of them?
Well, I am based in Bucks County, but I'm also in Princeton too.
That's fine. We really didn't have to. Nick, you should just tell your mom thanks, but you got. Nick, suggest like I know people don't like to give the gift card thing, but if you like suggest like a very niche store, like an actual running store, like it might make mom feel a little better. Like she can get you like, a gift card and like a cute pair of like, I don't know, running socks or something like that.
Yeah, I'm always good with like any winter gear or rain gear, because that shit you're not going to use every day, but I could keep for the next like 5 to 10 years. So Mom, if you're listening, get me some rain gear. I live in Seattle. I sure as hell need it.
Natalie, his mom doesn't listen to the show.
Nick, I'm going to get you a t-shirt.
Thank you. I would love that.
That's
I would rock that shit all day.
Yeah.
And you can give me one for the next preceding 15 Christmases. So.
Oh my God, it's awesome.
That's a great idea. Thanks, Natalie.
No problem. I got you.
And that brings another episode of We Run This to a close. Nick and I want to thank everybody for listening. If you love the podcast, please share it with friends or leave a review on iTunes. And remember to follow Nick and I on social media. He's at It's Nick Domingo, and I'm at Chris Illuminati on Twitter. Or follow us both on Instagram at WeRunThis_pod. Until next time, see everybody out there.